You're listening to She's the Business podcast. Okay, hello, I'm here with the beautiful Jo Worsfold. Jo, thank you so much for coming and joining me here on the podcast today. I'm so glad to have you here because I know I invited you quite a while ago. I've really wanted to bring you on to, talk to us all about what you know, which I think is so, well, for me, it's definitely something a bit different and interesting in the realms of business, because we're going to talk a lot about spirituality today, and you are the queen, helping everyday people understand it and get in tune with it, which is so exciting. And I know you've been in my Business Jam program for a while, we've connected, and you've just got so much to share with everybody else. So thank you for coming and being here with us today.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you so much for having me. I've been very much looking forward to this. As you know, spirituality is my thing, my passion, my love. I've been living and breathing it for a very, very long time myself now. So, being able to help others in this space is pretty cool.
So before we dive into today's topic, and I'm really keen to hear more about, how we can tune into our intuition, how that's going to help us in business and in life in general. But share with us who you help in your business. What is it that you actually do so that we can understand a little bit better?
Sure. So I'm a spiritual healer, channel and guide, and I'm an author as well. I self-published my book a few years ago, and it's all very much, my book is about, spirituality for everyday people. My overarching theme, my passion is everyday spirituality. It's that magic blend of the woo with the everyday, so that it becomes natural and easy and effortless, which then makes it really, really transformational. So I pretty much help people with my energy work, so energy healing, and I do channeled meditations and, spiritual guidance and all sorts of things. The main aim is to empower women and help them be spiritual in their own unique way, in a way that feels good and easy and natural for them, because it is natural. Spirituality, it's, animals are intuitive, animals communicate telepathically, all these other creatures on earth have these gifts, these abilities, and we have them too, but it tends to drown out, the noise of life dims that side of us, that part of us. So, I help women reconnect, find that something missing in their life. They've tweaked their diet and they're doing exercise and they're going to therapy and they're, doing all the things and still feeling like, something's missing, something's not quite complete in their life. And it's often that spiritual aspect, in some shape or form, whether that's just, immersing yourself more in nature and just allowing yourself to feel more deeply when you're in nature, and that's enough, that's plenty, that's a spiritual experience in and of itself, or whether it's going full woo and, getting your full hippie on, there's no rules.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm kind of curious because, as you know, we've chatted about this before, but I didn't grow up in a world or an environment that was spiritual at all. Like, it was all very logical, very science and maths based, probably because my dad was he's got a degree in maths, and I think my grandparents were maths teachers. Oh my goodness, it was all the very polar opposite, I would say, to the woo and intuitive side. And so I really got trained in that, and that was how I thought and approached my entire life. And it was only once I became an entrepreneur that I started to sort of tap into and learn a lot more, just hearing other people talk and seeing things and being exposed to it and realizing, wow, there's so much more in our energy, even understanding energy, understanding intuition, learning a little bit about it, and thinking, well, actually, this has been in my life all along. Now that I know what to look for, I can look back and see the signs of it, but I just had no idea that it was there. And I also would think, if I'd been in that place where I was like, something's missing, something's wrong, I'm just feeling like I'm in a rut and I don't know what is wrong with my life and I'm looking for someone to help fix it for me, I wouldn't have known what it was that I was missing. So I'm curious to hear you explain, the people who come to you and you help, you say a lot of people are just everyday people. They're not necessarily into the woo, and you break it down and make it very everyday and normal. But what might they be experiencing in their life right now that would indicate this is the missing link for them, that this is the part of their life that they're actually missing?
I think probably the biggest thing, the biggest sign is feeling disempowered in some way. We tend to rely very heavily on other people's opinions, other people's expertise. Even if that other person is the expert in the room, they know their stuff. It's that feeling of being very dependent on and reliant on other people or external sources, even external information. That's usually a really big sign that if you feel disempowered, you've disconnected from yourself to a degree, and perhaps you're getting these inklings. So many women, they get these feelings or these inner knowings, and then they ignore it because they think, oh, I'm going mad, or oh, I've just made that up, or my mind's playing tricks on me, or whatever. And then they kind of reflect back afterwards. So there'll be another big sign is the reflection time. So when you look back and go, oh, God, I knew that already, or I wish, why didn't I listen to myself? Why didn't I trust myself? That kind of narrative is usually a big giveaway that, it's time. It's time to connect back to your spiritual side, to your soul self, and, take your power back.
Yeah. And what becomes possible, like when you're able to do that? So if I can connect into my spiritual side, or into kind of, I guess it's that intuition that's coming through. Like I knew that, but I didn't pay attention to it at the time. What do you see becomes possible for people? Like, what does it look like or feel like when they are more connected to themselves?
That's a really good question. So there's a couple of things. The big one is more easier. Life gets easier. Life gets so much easier when you start to pay attention and not just acknowledge those little inklings and those little feelings, but when you actually then act on them, aligned action with those inner knowings, things become easier. So you find your flow state, and that sounds, a lot of people, I feel like it's being in your flow, it's a popular phrase at the moment. It's probably a bit overused, but it's so true. Life feels more easy and effortless, and you feel more empowered. Decisions are easier. You start to magnetize because your energy is shifting when you're in that state. So more opportunities seem to just magically present themselves to you, and you're like, oh, I don't even know where that came from. So, those little nuggets will start to come through as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because I think, for a lot of us, we do have these intuitive nudges. Like you say, you have those experiences where you look back and thought, oh, I knew that I should have done that, or I had that. So we're receiving it, but I think there's this big gap in the trust, right? So that's what I'm hearing from you is we might be getting some of that feedback already, and we are energetic beings. We all have intuition, whether we know it or not. There'll be that thing where it says, don't do that, or do this, or this is a great idea. But then it's this lack of trust, which you alluded to before. You're like, we're expecting somebody else to always guide you and tell you what's the right move. Why do you think that is so much? And how do you help people be able to not only tap into the intuition, but be brave enough to trust what their intuition's telling them?
I think a key thing with that is not making things harder or more complicated than they need to be. So a big part of how I help women is bringing the fun back into spiritual. A lot of people get really serious with spiritual stuff. They get really heavy and serious with it and solemn almost. And I'm very much about, let's just play with it. Let's just have some fun, play with it, find out what works and what doesn't work. And I think the more you incorporate playful spiritual practices of any kind, whether it's, you know, playing with your intuition or playing with some oracle card deck, or, you know, playing with some crystals, just feeling into them, and bringing that playful element back in really helps establish trust, because it doesn't feel like this big, you know, weird, unknown, wacky, you know, thing that's kind of looming and lurking. It helps to realize, it helps people to realize that, okay, well, this is easy and it's fun and it's natural, and then the trust kind of develops from that.
Yes, it's so great. I think, you know, just to bring it to, you know, I keep applying what you're saying to obviously myself. It's easy to do. But, you know, you're talking about, so often we're looking for someone else to tell us what's right, what's wrong, and give you the advice. And especially in business, right? We're building something. You're building something that it hasn't existed before. It's brand new. And there's more than one way of doing it. So that's the thing. Like, you'll hear somebody saying you should be doing this, and someone else who's got another view and another way. And it's not that any of them are wrong. Actually, they all work. That's the thing. That's probably what makes it hard. So you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm so confused or overwhelmed by it, or I just want someone else to tell me what to do, which is what a lot of people are thinking. And the thing is that you could decide who you're going to listen to. There's always going to be somebody with a way that's going to feel more aligned to you, but it's still going to take that element of you taking action, like you said, like that trust in, well, I've chosen this and I've chosen this for a reason. And then to stop second guessing yourself, because what I see a lot happening is someone will start down a path and then they're pulling back every step of the way thinking, oh, but what if this isn't right? But what if this isn't right? What if there's a better way? What if there's grass is greener somewhere else?
No one else is doing this. That's another big one too. Oh my God, no one else is doing this way. And so they block themselves that way as well. Like using your business jam as a good example for myself, you know, starting the business jam process, you know, there's a lot of information in there and a lot of wisdom and expertise, and lots of step-by-step, you know, feel into this, have a look into that, da-da-da. So for me, working through that process, I'm a scholar. I like to be an A+ student. It's in my blood. I've always been that way. So I was so focused on getting things right from your perspective, you know, from the teacher's perspective, from, you know, ticking the boxes and getting things right. And I was making good progress. But the real breakthrough for me came when I was like, okay, I'm just going to revisit all the business jam stuff and take it on, but not take all of it as gospel, and not assume that all of it is going to fit my business model and my business. And so then intuition comes into play. And the second I started bringing my intuitive side into business jam, you know, my results in my business went from good to great, like amazing. And that was the difference for me. And I think that's a really, you know, something that I wish for every woman in business, you know, every female entrepreneur, is to keep learning from the experts, and keep asking questions, and keep, you know, developing yourself. But weave the intuition and weave the spiritual, the energetics, you know, weave that into it as well. And it really does, you know, transform the whole experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like, the way I actually designed Business Jam was that you're going to take these sort of principles, but then apply them to your own business. So there is no one single right way. There's no defined path or process. It looks different for every business, but you're going through that, and the questions are there as sort of prompts, you know, what is it? You know, so it's all very individual. And I think it's when you're too much in your head and trying to think your way through it and think to the right answer, versus actually tapping into what's really in your heart and actually applying what you know to be true, and not worrying about, but is this going to be the most profitable? It's like, yes, it is actually. But whatever is in your heart, that, you know, and I know that this sounds very airy fairy, but there is a science to it, you know, in the back end, as Joe's been through. Like, there is a science to this, and we figure out the way that is actually the right way for you. That you do have to turn that brain off and stop it questioning, is this going to be the best? It's like, because you've got to trust what's come up. That is what is most aligned for you, and the most aligned, the thing that you love, the thing that you're best at, how it's going to flow out of you is always going to be your number one thing. And so that's, I love that you kind of brought that example up, because that's exactly how business jam is meant to be used. And I think that people who, you know, find it easier are the people who are more freely tapping into, you know, what's in their heart, and often those who are finding it harder or just spend a bit longer to make decisions, it's because they're so in their head.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, when people challenge us, so when people, you know, challenge us, when I say challenge, you know, they ask us a question. So a mentor or someone will make a passing comment or give you a prompt to feel into, you know, having the courage to not immediately assume that you've done something wrong or you're doing something wrong. You know, that might just be a prompt from the universe, you know, to help you back yourself a little bit more. So, you know, a good example of that is another mentor that I have been working with over the last few months. So my target audience is Australian women, and she challenged me on that. She was like, well, are you limiting yourself? You know, why go global, Joe? Like, why are you limiting yourself to just Australian women? And old me, you know, spiritual stuff and intuition, and, you know, which from that comes confidence as well, when you're being, you know, aligning yourself with your spiritual side. Confidence is a big thing that comes as a result of that. You know, old me would have gone, oh, okay, I need to go global. I'm going to drop the Australian from everything, and I'd be on my website dropping the word Australian, and I'd be, you know, going global and probably getting myself in a real state over it and causing myself stress and anxiety. But now I was able to really feel into that, and how does that land? And the feelings that I got, because intuition's not always an inner knowing. It's not always the voice in your head. It's not always, you know, the gut instincts, as we call it. It's a feeling. It's a sensation in your body, or an emotion. So, you know, our emotions are energy. So that is how our intuition communicates with us, through all different ways. The thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, all of it. And so I had this feeling in my body of just, it was like I felt myself anchor more into what I'm already doing, helping Australian women. And so I was so grateful to her for, you know, for questioning me on that, because it really reinforced that yes, that is, I'm doing the right thing. You know, she probably wouldn't be doing it, and lots and lots of other women wouldn't be just focusing on, you know, one country or one area, but it was right for me. So, you know, having, I think courage is, you know, being intuitive, being spiritual, it gives you courage to back yourself more. And so people that are, you know, feeling uncertain and, am I doing the right business? Should I be using this bookkeeping program or that bookkeeping program? And you're going and asking all the people all the questions, or you're using something and someone comes along and says, this program's better, use that one. You know, before you jump ship and, you know, create a whole lot more work for yourself, you know, bring that energetic, intuitive side into it and go, all right, I'm just going to feel into this, literally feel into it and see where it lands, and then you go from there.
Yes. Yeah, it's such a good example, because, you know, I think anyone can look back and think about a time where you did something because somebody else said that would be the best thing to do, and it didn't feel right. Like, it didn't give you that centered, grounding feeling, like, I know that this is exactly where I'm meant to be, and you know, it can happen at any point in time. Like, I think of probably it was like last year, I made some changes based on somebody else's opinion and advice. And I thought, well, I should listen to them. And it just did not feel right. You know, the whole time I was doing it, I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. And I tried to stick with it. You know, I was like, no, I've got to give this a proper go. And then, you know, I just thought, you know what? This, I absolutely know in my boots all the way down to my feet, you know, that this is not the right thing. This is not for me, might be for someone else, but for me, this isn't right. And as soon as I made that decision, wow, the weight just lifted off my shoulders, right?
And
I actually knew what the right thing was straight away.
Yeah.
I was like, bang, I actually know what it is. You asked me, and I go, bang, this is the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why had I not been doing it? Yeah.
It's a visceral feeling. It's a feeling in the body of, oh, I can breathe again, or oh, I feel lighter, or oh, I feel, you know, less burdened in some way. Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of women, you know, there's uncertainty. So they're like, I'm not, you know, they're not sure. They think they get a feeling, but they're not sure. That's such a huge block. And so while I've got this opportunity, I just wanted to sort of talk to that just for a second.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, do.
It comes back to the play, bringing back the play and just experimenting, feeling, you know, confident and comfortable enough to experiment, because the more you play with, it's like exercising your muscles. When you go to the gym, your muscles get stronger. You know, the more you play with your intuition, and there's lots of different ways you can do that, lots of different ways you can do it. I won't get into that now, but the more you do that, the less doubt you'll have. So if you know, to any women out there that are feeling like, oh, I think I'm intuitive, I think I get these knowings and these feelings, but I'm not really sure, and then you kind of spiral into your head and you doubt. Try and come back to, okay, well, how can I play with this? How can I strengthen it? How can I learn to trust it a bit more? And the more you start to develop that, you know, your confidence in, yes, that was definitely, you know, that's a yes or that's a no, you know, it becomes, you know, undeniable.
Yeah, I think one of the things that definitely made me believe in and realize that I had strong intuition was when I became a mother. And I was trying to think, was it my son? Yeah, actually, no, he was only a month or so old. And I just had these moments of like, I'm listening to these health professionals and they're telling me something, and I knew 100% that there was something wrong. And so because I didn't just give up and think, oh, I'm just going to follow their advice blindly. And unfortunately, at time I did a little bit delay, because I was like, well, maybe they're telling me it's nothing to worry about. But something in my gut was saying, no, do not stop. You need to solve this. And thank goodness I did, because my son had a obstructed birth. He had a tight neck, and he was lying on his head in one spot, and so it was getting flatter and flatter. And I'd noticed it, as a mother would, because I was looking at his head every day. And the you know, what do you call it? The child doctor. I can't remember what they call it. Pediatrician. The pediatrician said to me, oh, that's normal. Just put him down facing the other way. And I was like, yeah, but he always rolls his head to this side. He has it that way the whole time. It doesn't matter what way I put him down. Doesn't matter what I do. And it was only because I kept going, and someone else finally said to me, oh, he's actually got it's a condition. It's a stiff neck. You need to see a baby's special chiropractor and the physio to help him. Thank goodness I did. But it was already at that point where, you know, I was like, well, I've already done damage to my child by not acting fast enough. And I knew that this was a thing. I knew that there was a problem. And so that in that moment, you know, that really showed me, hey, your intuition was right. You should have kept going and not just taken the first answer as right. Like, trust what you knew. And it happened many times. So I think any woman listening, sorry, that was a long garbled story, but my point was, if you've had kids, you know, you probably would have had some experiences like that where you've gone to, you know, and seen some help, and no one will, I hear what you're saying, but that's not what's happening here for my kids. You know, they always say mother knows best. It's like, we've just got this knowing. Yeah. We can't explain it, but you know it. And now that you can, you know, got that in your mind, you think, well, what other ways is this showing up in my life? Like maybe I do know some stuff about myself, and I'm listening to. Or
I was about to say it's a very easy, or it's often easier for us to apply our intuition to other people, to friends. You know, you're giving your friend advice.
Yep.
You know, oh, I have a feeling that you should, and you've wholeheartedly believed that. You know, you've got conviction when you're saying that to your friend, or with your kids. You know, so. Circling that back around to yourself is often not as easy to do. So, but yeah, if you've got those, you know, you've already got those qualities, you're already doing it and, you know, showing it for other people, just having that courage to circle it back around to yourself and just start taking a gamble on yourself and your own, inner knowings. It's huge. Game changer.
Yeah, and you just look back and you think, gosh, if I just listened to myself, then I might have, you know, like I might have started my business earlier. I might have done this sooner. I could have got the help I needed faster, but I thought I needed to figure it out this way, or, you know, and you have all these bits of, you know, intuition that you can look back and see that you didn't follow it. And you're like, damn, I should have. I'm curious, like, if you had anything where someone might be thinking, well, I don't know if I am, you know, what does this mean? Does this mean I'm going to start, you know, burning sage and using crystals and all things like, or listening to horoscopes that are in the paper? I don't know what people think. Like, what is something that you sort of think is really simple, or a way that they could, you know, start to just play with it or test something out?
I think, as cliche as it sounds, trust what you're feeling drawn to. You know, when I first started, you know, my spiritual journey, I was trying all the things and I was doing all the things, and I lost myself. I literally lost myself in the process. So rather than my spiritual side enhancing my life as it is, you know, as it exists already, I actually lost myself even further, thinking that I needed to, you know, chant every morning and, you know, go to women's circles every fortnight and whatever it might be that I was feeling like I had to do at the time. So, yeah, I think the key is to, it sounds funny, but trust your intuition. So what are you feeling? What are you feeling drawn to? What do you feel like you need? Do you feel like you need to just stick a couple of crystals on your desk while you're working? Because that makes you feel better. You're not sure why, but it makes you feel better. Do that. And things will start to shift, and other little breadcrumbs will start to present themselves, and you let it unfold organically. I think that's the key. And just remembering that spirituality looks and feels different for everyone. So that you don't lose yourself in the process, so you can get the most out of it. I think, that's probably the most important thing for me. You know, if you want to meditate before you sit down to work every day, meditate. Awesome. If you don't, you know, if you just feel like you want to, you know, even if you feel like you want to put a bunch of flowers on your desk while you're working, everything has energy, literally everything. So, you know, you might feel like you want to clear your workspace out. You know, you feel it. You sit down at your desk. I did it. I've been in the UK for 3 weeks, had the most life-changing experience, sat back at my desk when I got home and went, oh, I'm not sitting here. This feels funky. Like, I just felt like the energy at my desk felt stagnant. So I changed things around and I cleaned it down and I opened up the windows, and, you know, everything is energy. Just feeling your way through what you feel like you need to do to help yourself and to help, you know, you show up more and align yourself more with your business. Do that.
Yeah. So good, because there's so many places that this conversation could have gone, and you know, you've just touched on energy, we touched on personal power, which, you know, really it's so linked to acknowledging your intuition and actually following what you feel, like really being able to step into your personal power. And I think that, you know, someone might be questioning, what does it mean? Does it mean that I already know all the answers and it's all I need to ever do? And like, well, sometimes yes and no. Like, it is handy when there's someone external who helps to hold a mirror up and kind of show you, or maybe give some guidance. And there's definitely times that someone can help you do things faster because they can remove all of the trial and error of, all these different things. But it is so much, I think, when I look back, I'm like, there's been a lot of moments that I can recognize now where I'm like, I was not in my personal power at all. I was completely thinking I needed that person or someone else, either their approval, their permission in a way to do something. And it's like, no, you can, like, that feeling of being in your power to me is almost like, I hear what you're saying, I take all that on, I don't feel emotional about it, I center it in and decide myself what I want to do. And it's kind of removing that fear. I think fear often holds a lot of people back. They see the thing that's going to help them in their business. They're like, yes, I do need someone to tell me how to do this better, or to help me figure this out because I'm just going around in circles. Do the thing. You've already realized that you need someone to help you. Get the help. And that's actually still being in your power, because you're still the one making the decisions. You're still the one that will decide. But it's okay to get the help. So I'm not saying you don't listen to anyone and you don't need doctors or anything. Don't take that. That wasn't my advice. It was just more, know when you've got that feeling like there's something more. I need to ask something more. I need to, apply a bit more research into this or understand more about it, which is different from fear, because I can see. So I don't know. How would you describe, what's the difference between intuition telling you to keep looking, or that there's something else out there, versus fear, this is the thing that I need, but I'm afraid of doing it, and that kind of is the thing that pulls you back? Because I think they could get really easily confused. So what would you say is the difference?
That's another really good question. And they can be it can be hard to tell the difference. And I honestly believe there's no shortcut. There's no quick fix. Okay, well, all of a sudden, I know that this is my intuition and that is my fear leading me. It's a process of getting to know yourself more, getting better acquainted with yourself in every way, getting to know your body, paying close attention to the signs in your body. And then over time you for me, it was a process of learning and recognizing, okay, well, I think that's fear, and then paying attention to how is that showing up. So it'd be high. I could feel it in my chest rather than in my belly, as an example. And I'd be feeling a little bit shaky in the body if it was fear, rather than feeling grounded like I would if it was my intuition. And it's subtle. It can be so subtle sometimes. And I really don't think there's a shortcut with that one. I think it's just taking the time to get to know yourself more, paying attention to all the little symptoms and signs, and then you can kind of start to determine and distinguish, right, this is my intuition talking, or this is my fear talking, or this is my head getting in the way and, having a good rattle on about something. You just got to get to know yourself really, really well. And that's fun. That's a good thing. Some people see that as a chore. It might feel like a chore to start with, but I tell you what, it pays massive dividends, because you find yourself. It's all part of the spiritual. For me, that's all part of being spiritual. You are literally finding yourself. You're falling in love with yourself a little bit at a time. And the more you do that, the easier it is to distinguish the difference between, is this my ego, or is this my fear, or is this my head, or is this my soul? Is this my heart talking?
Yeah. I have a question. You have what's called your stellar journeys, and is that like a tool that helps people to connect in with themselves more? Would that be part of starting to understand how you're feeling and knowing yourself? Tell me a bit more about what they do and what that's about.
Yeah, definitely one of the reasons why I started Stellar Journeys. How long have they been going now? About 6 or 7 years, I think. And yes, that is a big reason why they exist, because women, we're busy. We're very busy. We have our heads often take over. We put other people first all the time. We don't have a lot of spare time on our hands, or most of us don't anyway. And so Stellar Journeys kind of came about because there was a need for it. Women were wanting a quick, fun, easy way to consistently check back in with themselves and feel into their bodies and feel into their energy and have their own experiences, not just have someone else tune into their energy say, oh, I see this, or I feel that, or, you should do this or you should do that. You've given your power away when you're in that situation. Mm-hmm. So Stellar Journeys came about because women wanted their power back and they didn't know how to do it. And so Stellar Journeys, every week, once a week, 45 minutes, it's, a meditation that takes you very, very deeper than the, just a basic meditation. There's energy healing involved and there's channeled guidance from spirit involved. And I've found that, combining those three elements in a way that is easy and effortless and very, very empowering. It's always only an invitation. It's not a you have to do this, you should do this.
Yeah.
Women are having their own experiences. They are literally seeing things, energies, people, spirits in their mind's eye. They're having full body sensations, so they're having their own experience. And it brings them back to themselves. And they're being consistent and playful with it because we do it every single week. And they then, take that and roll with it, and it all just translates into their everyday life and into their business, so they can show up better and stronger and happier.
Yeah, that's incredible. So cool. I'll make sure that we've got that linked up in the show notes. So if you're interested in finding out any more about the Stellar Journeys that Jo has every week, it sounds really fun, and it stops you having to think, well, how do I do this and when do I do it? It's like you don't need to kind of think, do you? You can just sort of turn up or turn it on and do it when it suits you. But it stops you kind of thinking, well, what do I need to do first? Do I need to go out and get some crystals or whatever? It's like, well, maybe you could just follow Jo's guidance in those journeys and you'll find it yourself. So
exactly.
That sounds amazing. This has been such a cool conversation, and I know that you've got so much more to share, but you do share a lot on your social media. You share heaps of really cool stuff. So tell us, where can we find you? Where's the best place to connect and hang out?
I am probably more often on Facebook, on my Facebook as myself. So if you look up Jo Worsfold, you'll find me on there. Don't ask me what my handle is because I don't know it off the top of my head. But I am on Instagram as well. And look, I'm even on YouTube. I've got a few things on there. But probably Facebook is where I tend to, my people find me and I have, the most stuff going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. And you did mention at the start of the episode that you've written a book as well, which I think, you said it takes people through that starting to find their own spirituality, like kind of understanding what it is. So that could be a really good place to start as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's called Equilibrium, Spirituality for Everyday People. And it's a great, people are calling it their best friend, their spiritual best friend. It's like, and people that are at the very start of their spiritual journey, or people that are even a little bit into it, it just gives them a little bit more courage and, unbiased, information, I guess, easy to understand, easy to wrap your head around. There's no fancy words and confusing lingo in there. It's very down to earth, just like me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today, Jo. This has been such a great conversation, and I know that we'll have another one about this really soon.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.